We had friends that had two sons the same age as ours, and I remember talking to them, and one of them said, well, what do you think you did wrong? Just thinking, I don't know everything. I thought we were doing things the way you were supposed to do things. So I didn't expect this to happen. And then they didn't know how to relate to it. So then they didn't know what to say to you. And so as we would sit there and try and find friends that would help us to walk through this, it made it worse. It was like, I don't think we want to go anywhere. I don't think we want to be around people, because you know what they're going to do? They're going to ask us where our sons are. If they don't know the story, or they don't even know what's going on because we weren't sharing it with very many people, well, then they're going to say, well, where are they? What are they doing? And then we would have to lie, or we would have to come up with some story that wasn't true, because half the time we didn't know where they were. We didn't know what was happening with them. I mean, how many conversations do you have that start off with, well, how's your sons doing? And, well, they're homeless, living in the park, and I just got a call from the police department and they're both using drugs. That is not a conversation that you're equipped or prepared to have with people. They're not prepared to hear that, because when they hear that, they don't know how to respond and they don't know what to say to you. We started feeling more and more alone and more isolated. I don't know what to do. I've tried, I've begged, I've pleaded with them. I've called everybody I know. I've done everything I can and nothing works. This kept going, and it's hard to believe, but for 10 years before our older son even considered getting into treatment. And so at one of those low points, after almost a decade of dealing with this, and my wife and I feeling so isolated, she sat down one night when we were sitting there talking, and she said, we've got to find something. We have got to do something. Our lives are coming apart. And she was looking online and she was trying to find something, and she saw something about this organization called PAL, Parents of Addicted Loved Ones. And she said, we need to go to this. And if I'm perfectly honest, I'd say I didn't want to go. One, I didn't want to be identified with that group. I didn't want to go there, have to admit that this is what I was dealing with. It was just pride. And it was just, I don't want to go to one more place and find out that there is nothing I can do. And I really don't want to go and hang around people that are just miserable. And so I pushed back, but my wife insisted we need to go. And so the next thing that happened is we showed up at the meeting. And I'll tell you, it was eye-opening, because the first thing that I noticed was that there were a lot of people that were just like us. And interestingly, some of them didn't seem to be as miserable as we were. And I was thinking, well, why is it that they can be kind of joking and seem to have a smile on their face when I know their situation is just as bad or maybe even worse than ours? And then I started to hear similar stories and started to hear from people that they were dealing with very similar situations. And at that point, at least one thing happened, is we weren't alone. There were other people. They had the same experiences. They had the same emotions. They had the same feelings. They were experiencing the same problems we were experiencing. And so I'll never forget, I was sitting there in that meeting. It would have this educational component, and they would talk about the issue of addiction, and I would learn things that I didn't know. And they would talk about recovery and what it should look like and things that I didn't know. And I thought, well, that's helpful, but my sons aren't doing that. I don't know what to do with all this. And then they would go around the room and they'd let everybody kind of check in and share, what was going on. And if you wanted feedback, you could ask, and they would share their experiences. And I sat there in those meetings and I never said anything. I just listened. And for 6 weeks, I sat there and I just listened. And my wife would talk, she would say a few things, and she would share, but I didn't. I'll never forget going to that meeting, and after 6 weeks, the facilitator went around the room and he got to me and he said, hey, did you have something you wanted to say today? No. I don't know, you kind of look like you have something you might want to say. I said, no, not really. Okay, one last chance. I really feel like you've been sitting here several weeks and you haven't said anything, and you have that look like you have something you want to say. It's okay, say it. I've been coming here for 6 weeks, like you said, and I have been waiting for 6 weeks for you to tell me how to fix my sons, and you haven't done that. When are you going to do that? He looks at me and he says, oh, I see. He goes, you're a fix-it guy, I guess. And he goes, are you good at it? Are you good at fixing things? And I said, well, it's kind of part of my job. I mean, yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, I'd say I was pretty good at it. Well, here's the thing. It's a great skill to have for work, but you can't fix your sons. We could work on you, though. Would you like to work on you? And I'm thinking, me? I don't have an addiction problem. I don't have a substance problem. I came here to get help for my sons. And he says, well, that may be something we can do, but in the meantime, what we need to do is see if there's something we can do to help you. Would you like to do that? And I'll tell you, at this point, I was pretty beaten down after all these years and after all these failures. And I just finally looked up at him and I said, you know what? Sure. What can I do? Because at this point, I want to do something to save my kids.